Let me now widen this. We will get guests from Tehran as well as from India. KC Singh, former Secretary MEA, served in Tehran. Hossein Ghosh Khelagat is former Editor-in-Chief, Press TV, Tehran. And Jayan Krishna, Senior Fellow, Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington. But I want to come to you first, to my guests from Iran. Hossein Ghosh Khelagat, how is Iran seeing what has played out in the last 24 hours? Benjamin Netanyahu saying Iran has made a big mistake. They will have to pay a heavy price for it.
Thank you so much for having me. As you know, Iranian state media reported over 200 missiles had been fired at Israel, including hypersonic weapons for the first time, which was for itself a big story even inside Iran. And as you know, Tuesday attack was Iran's second attack on Israel after a missile and drone attack in April in retaliation for the deadly Israeli strikes on the Iranian Consulate building in Damascus. We have also had warning by IRGC officials, including the Joint Chief of Staff of IRGC, which warned of more attacks if Israel goes ahead with attacking Iran. But what is important for now is what I want to mention is the reactions of the government supporters in Iran. Following the attack, the government supporters took to the streets nationwide to hail the IRGC for its retaliatory attack on Israel.
Are you saying a majority of Iranians are supporting what your regime is doing? Are majority supporting this?
No. I was just saying that government supporters took to the streets to hail IRGC for conducting the attack. And what you can see on social and state media right at the moment are footage of missile being fired at Israel. Moreover, state television is broadcasting images of residents of different Iranian cities celebrating missile attacks in streets, waving yellow flag of Hezbollah and portrait, and they actually are showing the images, the pictures, the portrait of the Lebanese
no, but do a majority, Hossein Ghosh Khelagat, I want this clear, do a majority of people of your country support taking on Israel in a direct conflict? Is this what you want?
I was just saying, this is my statement. What we saw, what we observed over the past 24 hours were these government supporters who took to the streets to hail the IRGC for conducting attack on Israel. And I have no idea about the number of people who took to the streets, but what I'm certain is that those who took to the streets were government supporters.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So, KC Singh, we are playing these images of the streets of Tehran where you've got pictures of Nasrallah being held up, pictures of Khamenei being held up, and government supporters hitting the street, as Hossein Ghosh Khelagat said. Do you believe that this attack, KC Singh, has widespread support in Tehran from your experience being there? Or is Israel banking on some element of discontent that could lead, they hope, to even internal discontent leading to a regime change?
Rajdeep, let me start by...
Yeah, go ahead,
Let me start by introducing two ironies. Cyrus the Great liberated the Jews 2,500 years ago from their imprisonment in Baghdad, and they were able to go back. So it was really an Iranian emperor who released the captivated Jews to return to their homeland. Now, ironically, again, it's Netanyahu who was on a very sort of on the back foot after October 7 last year, because there was an intelligence failure. He was very unpopular. There were popular protests. So the more the uncertainty, more risky the path he takes, less the danger to him losing power. And that is the problem, because he's gone on extending the area of conflict. And that has suited him because Israelis have now no option. They've protested against him because relatives of hostages have protested. But today he probably has the nation behind him. Same will happen in Iran. It's an ancient civilization, 3,000 years or more. Once you threaten them, the people will fall in behind the leaders. So the reverse will happen. And I'm sure Netanyahu knows it, but he doesn't care. His thing is to essentially use it to weaken his opponents and the surrogates of the Iranians. They've done it up to a point.
But he could say he's justified KC Singh because of the kind of war that the proxies of Iran have launched against him. I mean, he could well claim that he's doing this as he is in some kind of self-defense.
Correct. But you must also remember that even the Chinese, though India has not said that, the Chinese called the first missile attack by Iran on Israel as self-defense. And as we are talking now, the UN Security Council is meeting. There's an emergency meeting. And the representative of Russia, I didn't hear the representative of China, the representative of France also was for ceasefire. They're not fully supporting Netanyahu in what he's doing.
Right.
They're saying, hey, this needs to stop. And I think the general mood in the Security Council is that America, there's a window available to Netanyahu. American elections are just a month away. Biden is lame duck. Netanyahu is hoping that Trump comes in. I don't think Kamala Harris is that supportive of Netanyahu as Trump would be. And therefore, there is a window of the next 4 weeks, which Netanyahu wants to utilize to achieve his objective, which is to hit the nuclear facilities of Iran. Now, what happens is, I think it's been mentioned that Iran has conveyed silently to the West that if our oil facilities or our infrastructure is hit, we'll even go after US allies in the Gulf, which means then that is of concern to India, because if all oil export from the Gulf stops, you can imagine the chaos here. So therefore, when Prime Minister spoke only to Netanyahu, I was very surprised because we don't get into this. The Chinese President Xi hasn't got into this.
I'm going to just stop you for a moment, Casey, just to get your video. We are having a slight problem with the network. Let me just get back to you. But Jain Krishna, you're hearing what is being said by KC Singh. The United States is obviously a major stakeholder, particularly if now this involves Iran. So far, the US has made it very clear they stand behind Israel. If tomorrow Israel decides to hit a nuclear installation or an oil installation in Iran and this spirals out of control, what do you realistically see the United States doing?
So, Rajdeep, it's a very volatile situation. It appears as if the world is on the brink. Those of you of us who have been watching social media, we know people are talking about a possibility of a World War III. I mean, that seems to me extremely far-fetched. But yes, those kind of possibilities are being talked about. And as you rightly said, it is not just bombarding their nuclear installations, destroying their nuclear capability, but even they could go to an extent of insisting on a regime change in Iran, which is also their economy could be very, very badly damaged.
But do you see that happening? Are you really seeing that in the short term Israel will go to the extent of targeting nuclear and oil installations and pushing for a regime change?
I hope that doesn't happen, and I hope that US prevails upon them for a ceasefire. And also, I hope UN Security Council is meeting, that there's a UN resolution for whatever it means. The fact is,
but the UN seems completely, if I may be allowed to use the word, almost impotent at the moment in stopping the fight.
Which is very unfortunate, Rajdeep, because it seems to be going the League of Nations way. But in such a situation, whatever needs to happen, I mean, the US pressure on Israel for a ceasefire, the UN resolution, other senior leaders all over the world, if they impress upon them, then the retaliation may not be as harsh as people are talking about, or all Israeli leaders have been talking about. Because let us understand, nobody wins a war. Both sides lose a war. It's only the question of extent of losses on both sides that may vary, So I think to my mind, the wise sense must prevail, and Israel, the world must prevail upon Israel not to progress with the war and not to go for, the kind of hostilities which people are talking about, including their nuclear installations and oil fields and so on and so forth. I fundamentally believe, Otherwise, the world is going to pay a very, very heavy price. We have seen in the last 1 year or so, the crisis which has been going on in that region.
Right.
Thousands of lives have been lost. Civilian structures have been damaged. Strategic structures have been damaged. Nobody wins a war. That's a fact. That's a reality.
Can I therefore ask you, KC Singh, in conclusion, what's your best case and worst case scenario? I think more and more Indians certainly are concerned with the worst case. What's your worst case scenario? What's your best case scenario?
Worst case scenario is that they go after the nuclear facilities and they also hit the oil facilities. Then there'll be a retaliation because we'll see the Iranians go after the oil facility, maybe Saudi Arabia, in the Gulf, or they'll try stopping the oil trade from Gulf if their own oil trade is disrupted. The medium-term, reasonable kind of conclusion is Iranians will hit back. But remember one thing, we are told nobody's died in Iran, in Israel, other than one Palestinian. Now the reports which are coming in, and media is not carrying them. That is the other unfortunate thing. That bulk of the missiles which have landed at the Israeli air bases and near the Mossad headquarters. I don't think Iranians were targeting civilians. Therefore, the retaliation may be similar. There may be attack on some of the facilities because Israel has to retaliate, even to satisfy their own public opinion. But if Netanyahu goes all the way, it's possible he has an extreme right-wing coalition. And if he finds he's getting support from the public, he may just widen it. And then, of course, in these 4 weeks, when we have a lame duck US president and nothing much happening, I think anything can happen.
But so you're saying the next 1 month becomes critical because that provides a window to Netanyahu in a way, with the US caught up in its presidential elections, to take the kind of options that he wants. But Hossein Khosh Khelgat, give us again a view. How do Iranians see what is happening? Tell us how is the media in Iran, which is very controlled by your government, how is it reporting it? How are they seeing what is playing out? Is it seeing Nasrullah as some kind of a martyr, a hero? How are they seeing what is happening? How do they see Israel?
Exactly. If just you take a look at the state media, state television these days, it's full of footage of celebrations, of footage of Nasrullah, of fire, of missiles being fired on Israel. It's all about the state television. Even state-funded newspapers are the same. That's all about. That's what.
So they think targeting Israel with missiles, they think it's an occasion to celebrate.
Exactly. It's when it comes to state media, it's an occasion to celebrate because the government authorities were under heavy pressure by state media, by government to act, retaliate the Israeli operations in Lebanon, Israeli operation in Tehran, which led to the death of Ismail Haniyeh. The government was under mounting pressure to do something, and after the missile attack on Israel, these government supporters and even government supporters on the state media use the occasion to celebrate and.
So you're saying it's an occasion. I take your point. You're saying it's an occasion to celebrate. Now that should make it also worrying in a way. Jayan Krishna, America in the middle of a presidential election. How is the US seeing it at the moment? Do you sense concern, or is the primary focus on who wins November 5th, and then we'll see what happens?
See, I have a feeling, Rajdeep, in these kind of war-like situations, you can't wait for 1 month for the presidential elections to get over, So I think they would try their best. Howsoever, weak the president is said to be. But the fact is, Biden would try to prevail upon them and diffuse the situation rather than it to escalate. Because if it escalates, it doesn't do him any good any good to Kamala Harris in the elections at all. So I see they would do, while their entire focus is on the campaign and on the fundraising, but the fact is that they can ill afford if a full-fledged war breaks out between the two nations. I believe they will do everything it takes to diffuse the situation and insist on, prevail upon Israel to agree for a ceasefire.
Yeah, but that's, it's so far not worked, KC Singh. And there is the other angle that I just want to explore before I conclude, which is the moderate Arab nations and the so-called axis of the axis that Iran has built, the axis of resistance. How do you see that playing out? Do you see tensions widening within the Arab world if this continues to escalate in this manner?
No, these are mostly autocratic governments in the Gulf as well as in West Asia. And don't forget one thing, the governments may be secretly very happy because they fear Iran and they fear their influence in the Shia crescent. But the street may be behaving differently. The common Arab on the street would empathize with the Palestinians, would empathize with the Iranians, because the Palestinians are not Shias. The Hezbollah are Shias. So therefore, the minute the Palestinian issue comes in, the Arab street would be certainly supportive of Iran and not of their own governments. And they would be aware of it. So therefore, that's why they'll be quiet. The next question will be, if an aerial attack takes place, the planes have to overfly some Arab countries because Israel is far away from Iran. So is it Jordan? Is it UAE, Saudi Arabia? So which is the countries which allow it? I mean, that would be another question, which can then create a sort of turmoil within their own countries, not in the Gulf, but certainly in Egypt or Jordan. Jordanian king is already on the back foot, and there are a lot of Palestinians living in Jordan. Jordan has intervened in the past to shoot down the missiles, Iranian missiles, going over Jordan. Now, will they participate or be seen as complicit in Iranian facilities being attacked? I don't know. It just remains to be seen. But the most vulnerable will be the Jordanian regime.
Very, very interesting how this is playing out. And we expect, of course, more developments to take place. The United Nations Security Council is meeting as we speak. But as we've seen, the UN Security Council has been almost powerless over the last year to stop the bloodletting that's taken place on both sides, and their inability to ensure either Israel or indeed Iran are able to restrain them at the moment. So it appears who will play the peacemaker, that is a huge question, and there doesn't seem to be any sign at the moment of peace, particularly after yesterday's attack on Israel. You've heard from the Israeli perspective, you've heard about the celebrations taking place in Iran, and you're hearing from our expert guests warning of the short-term, medium-term and long-term consequences of all that's happened in the last 24 to 48 hours. I'll leave it there. I appreciate all my guests joining me. We'll, of course, continue to track this big story.